Arizona can be patient because they're a marquee basketball brand, but there are moving parts that must be addressed in the portal soon for Tommy Lloyd in Arizona.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wildcats Nation? I'm Leaf Tulane. This episode's brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we're driven by the details. Highlights make the real, but the work behind them makes them count. Stay tuned for this week's Moving the Game Forward, the all-new Mazda CX-5. More to move every side of you. And today on the show, I'll address the likely commitment for Jackson Shelstad heading to Louisville. Not Arizona, but Louisville. And how that impacts Arizona's point guard search for the potential replacement for the spot that we thought he would take, discuss money allocation when building a roster, and how it creates early action being important for Arizona. They cannot rest on their laurels and must get some players to commit soon. So let's dive right in. Let's start with Jackson Shelstad. Shelstad to Louisville is just about all but done and dusted. And that basically means Arizona must find a new top target at point guard. Does it mean Arizona needs to go point guard first? Or can they go power forward, which are the two positions that seem to be vacant? I told you guys I thought he wasn't the top of my point guard list, and this is when I thought he was going to be the guy, so it would behoove me to be highest on him. And because of that, I am not worried about finding a point guard. I believe Arizona will get a good point guard. What I do worry about is timing and money allocation. Though those things are interesting because the early decision makers are being given boatloads. So in the case of Jackson Shelstad, he's probably going to be overpaid for his services. Shelstad's good. Don't get me wrong. He'll be good for Louisville. He replaces Michael Brown, who replaced Chucky Hepburn in the 2 years with Pat Kelsey. The point guards have had tons of responsibility. They play up tempo. They get their buckets. They get paid a lot as well. So he's going to get paid, probably overpaid. And other guys are doing the same. And they're probably all, frankly, getting paid beyond what they're worth. They can get a bag. And their team is probably hurt by the lack of remaining money for true stars. The list remains the same for Arizona. I had Isaiah Johnson, Acaden Lewis, Zoom Diallo, Money Williams, Anthony Robinson, Miles Bird's going to Providence. But like those guys I just mentioned are still available for the most part. And those guys are all really good. And who fits best and who fits allocation and maybe who wants to win and not get paid as much is really interesting because there's dynamics. Like you don't know who is desperate to get paid the most and just wants the claim. You don't know who believes in their ability to make the NBA and says, you know what, if I win a lot at this program and I'm prominently featured on a really good basketball team, this could make me get more money down the road. And who has the vision to do that, the foresight to do that? So you don't know that stuff. You don't know who's going to get paid more, who's asking for what. And this makes it complicated. But what I do know is Arizona's got to make a move for a forward or a point guard soon in order to have the moving pieces in place just in case a guy like Mo Krivas does not stay at Arizona so they can have the flexibility roster-wise and monetarily to get the right guys. So one guy that's picking up steam in the Arizona rumors, knowing that Jackson Shelstad is kind of off the table, is Zoom Diallo. And Zoom Diallo is from Washington. And he's shifted into the limelight of many Arizona fans, so I'll give you guys kind of my first impression of him. The first point I have to make before talking about him as a basketball player is he has a visit to Kentucky who paid $22 million per year. So it's hard to contend with the money that he could get there. So if he does not go to Kentucky, he will likely say, this is what they are going to give me. Can you do so? But that said, Arizona's a far better landing spot than Kentucky. And he's kind of got a similar aesthetic to the way that Jaden Bradley plays. 16 a game, 4 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 2.5 turnovers, though. 49% from the field, 31.5 on 2 attempts per game from 3, so not a great shooter. 82.5 line. He was highly recruited, a 43rd on one site. He was top 25 on another. He went to Washington. He's from the state of Washington. Arizona had heavy interest. He chose Washington and new coach Danny Sprinkle at the time over offers from Arizona, LSU, Florida State, USC, UCLA, Kansas, Gonzaga, and Oregon. So nicely recruited, athletic player, gets downhill is his biggest thing. He's kind of a line drive type of driver, and he's not a particularly prolific nor great three-point shooter in terms of percentage. He scored 21 points a game, 4 of his last 5 games of the season, and dished out 18 assists over his final 2 contests. Like, he finished the season strong. He scored well on a bad team. I don't love that makeup, but I can talk myself into it. He shot 53% on twos, 31.5 from 3, while doubling his outside shooting volume. So he shot 1 last year, shot 2 this year. He also shot 82.5% from 3. And Diallo's production didn't lead to many wins. Like, I'm reiterating that because numbers are one thing, styles make the fight, but there does need to be some reciprocity in terms of winning for me at the point guard position. There are guys that can not win and just have the game, and they just went to a bad team. There's a world he's that. But the Huskies had some talent on their team. This season went 16-17, and the year before that, they were 13-18. I'm not saying this is Zoom Diallo's fault, but I do look for my point guard to have winning intangibles. Now, this is an interesting side if you really want to get deep onto the Zoom Diallo, and I'll have a deeper take if he does commit. But the advanced numbers are really high on what Diallo brings to the table. I mean, his usage rate and his assist rates are both very good. They rank in the 94th percentile or better compared to all Division I guards, and that's per CBB analytics. And although he's prone to turnovers, like I said, 2.5 per game, that makes me grimace. Diallo is not a volume three-point shooter. And on the flip side of that, right, like those are the weaknesses. On the flip side, he's graded out as one of the best in the country at point guard scoring and getting in the paint and drawing fouls. Rim pressure and foul pressure. He is graded out as one of the best guards in the country, bar none. And he's also a very good rebounder for his size. He defends his position. And I can see some allure to say, like, this guy physically resembles that of Jaden Bradley. He plays similarly. He's a driver, not much of a shooter. And he does this. I don't know if you really want to recreate the wheel. If you're looking for physical composition, he and Anthony Robinson make the most sense. But I think it's hard to recreate the wheel, like I said. So due to those analytics, due to the watching him play, the highlights of what he does really, really well in terms of driving and being able to put pressure on the rim as well as putting pressure as a defender, I can talk myself into it. I can get myself to believe in Zoom Diallo for Arizona. But he's not the type of guy I prefer if we're allotting equal money. If all things are equal, I prefer Acaden Lewis and Isaiah Johnson. Now, the question is, maybe they demand more money, and therefore Arizona does not want to give that money because they have to keep their money for getting big guys or something like that. But truth be told, like, he would be behind Lewis and Johnson. I'm just speaking my honest to goodness truth. And if he comes, I'll do a deeper dive, and I probably will talk myself into really liking him. But that's just how I feel. And this is the truth. The biggest truth here. Whoever Arizona gets has to be at the right price. There isn't a guard in the portal, and maybe not a guard in the country, worth $4 million. Shelstad's rumored to be in that ballpark. Who knows? But even if it's at 3, Rob Wright was $3 million for BYU, and he hindered them from having success because he was too ball dominant. There was promises of him having the ball, but AJ should have had it. Even before Richie Saunders got hurt, BYU had some issues. My point being is the point guard spot just does not warrant that level of pay in college basketball. It's a big man-oriented league. And Arizona needs to pay and land guys that fill out the roster, but they don't need to be hasty and overpay, which handcuffs a team more than waiting and being selective. And speaking of that money, let's talk about money allocation, how to best build the rosters that win championships, as well as what Arizona's allocation of money hinges on in terms of building that roster. All that and more next on Locked on Wildcats. Right after a word from Mazda. And this is Mazda moving the game forward. For those who know, the score never tells the whole story. Well, Arizona made a thrilling comeback from 7 down at half against Purdue. They dominated in the second half, defensively shut down the Boilermakers, and that stretch defined the game. It was amazing to watch. I was there in person, and there's more to these players than just the highlights. Seeing that passion was amazing. The early mornings, the late night runs, constantly showing up for their squad on and off the court. The all-new Mazda CX-5 moves the same way. With more space to connect, a bold new design, and more intuitive technology, you can stay connected to the road and every position you play. The all-new Mazda CX-5, more to move every side of you. And let me tell you about the beauty of TurboTax. It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet up face-to-face with the real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar that you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. Get Locked On Wildcats with and it's ad-free with the Everydayer Club, plus members-only Discord access. Join at lockedonwildcats.supercast.com, where we can talk ball all day long, and you get these shows ad-free. By the way, shout out to Chris. I got my Final Four shirt on. I told you guys if Arizona made a Final Four, I would be rocking that gear. Chris, coolest guy around, went to the game, asked me if I was interested in a shirt. And wanted support for those of you who are hating on like, oh, you don't wear the Arizona gear. And I said, if they win the Big 12 and if they win the Final Four, I'll be rocking gear. And I'm a man of my word. And Chris just helped me do that. Chris, you're the man. Just wanted to give a shout out, and what a shirt this is and what a season it was. But this season can turn into next season. That's the beauty of college basketball. You can ride momentum. Florida was a 1 seed. They didn't make it back to the Final Four, but they were a 1 seed after the last year of winning it all. And that was a quick transition back to basketball prominence after, a couple of years off the map. They get Todd Golden, they get a great coach after years off the map once Billy Donovan went to the NBA. So those two are similar. And what allows teams like Florida and Arizona, who have rich basketball tradition, but maybe not the most money as compared to Kentucky, to Duke, but still up there as compared to most college basketball teams. It's money allocation. It's being shrewd about who you take. Money allocation is what allows teams to truly excel. Arizona, in my opinion, had the most talented roster in America last season. And I don't think it's all that debatable, frankly. Like, Arizona has 2 lottery picks. They had a Big 12 player of the year. They had a guy that will be an All-American next year and likely a first-round pick in Krivas, another basically first-round pick in Karchenkov, and then the 6th man of the year in all of college basketball, if there were that award, in Tobe Awaka, along with Dwayne Aristode, likely future NBA guy, and then a guy who started for a very good team last year, and Anthony Del Orso coming off the bench. Like, they had 8 great players, 6 probably pros. And when I say pros, I'm saying NBA pros. And they had the best team in the country for a while. They had the most talented team in the country, NBA-wise and college basketball-wise, because many of their elite players were, relatively speaking, underpaid as compared to some other lesser players on lesser teams that comprise the same amount of money. Like, Arizona's not going to pay the same amount as Kentucky, but Arizona had 6 players better than Kentucky's best player. That's just the truth. Like, Otega Owe does not win at the same rate that Arizona's basketball players do. And if you want to say, oh, Otega Owe may be ahead, like, whatever. Like, it's 5 as opposed to 6. The point is, Arizona didn't have to buy their players and say that this is like, we're going to buy this player and this is going to be your role and you don't win. Arizona had great players and didn't need to have the highest payroll in the sport. They need to pay their players accordingly to retain. Krivas and Karchenkov were not paid close to what they were worth this year and what they should have been. Now they will have to be. Pete and Burries being freshmen helps in the sense that they're known commodities, but in my opinion, it makes them less of a bigger less of a monetary boost than some of the biggest names in the transfer portal, because those guys go kind of the highest bidder. Those guys say, here's the auctioneer. The highest bidder says this, I'm going to go there. Though the freshmen, the one that go to the best situation. Yes, they're compensated. They're marketable, but they weren't paid as much as, let's just say, Otega Owe, for the sake of comparison, in Kentucky. He made a ton more for being good on Kentucky the prior year than Burries and Pete, who are far better basketball players, made for Arizona. The cautionary tale, of course, is Kentucky. $22 million for their team, and they took a bunch of different role players that they overpaid and didn't have the horses to actually be very good this season. They drew interest from big names in the portal because they are a big name, but they made no actual improvement to the roster, and those guys made bank. You can talk about culture. I can't speculate too much into that. But what I do think is that teams are going to continue to have this problem, and some teams are going to hit on their portal classes and some are going to miss. Bill Self's notoriously missed a couple times, and we'll see how he does. So the truth of the matter is the portal is hit or miss, but you got to be selective. And I do worry about Diallo and Shelstad making as much as they're rumored to if Arizona doesn't get a point guard quickly. But the big money domino isn't the point guard spot. It's Mo Krivas. Mo Krivas is going to be the best big in the country next year. Mark my words. Best big in the country next year if he comes back. And the best bigs in the country are paid around $4 million. So Arizona will have to pay him as much as he would get paid by the NBA, if not more. And I did the research. Let's just say he's the 25th pick in the draft. And I think that's a fair assumption. That pick gets us about $3,410,265. That's the estimated value, according to Spot Track on what a 25th pick in the 2026 NBA draft gets. Arizona needs to pay pretty much that to get Mo Krivas. Maybe he gives him a hometown discount because they developed him, but let's just call a spade a spade. They're going to have to fish up and give him that amount of money. And they will, and they should, because he's great. But that domino needs to be allowed to fall at his timing, and it needs to be allocated accordingly, because you don't want to lose out on Mo Krivas because you don't have enough money. So they can't overpay preemptively on getting just any point guard. You need to have this mapped out. And you can't overpay the point guard or the four we assume they'll go get in the portal and then lose the actual guy that your team would hinge on. I'm sure they will not, but it does make it harder to get these point guards if the market price is way too high for a guy like Shelstad. He's a good player, but that's All-American money. And I just don't see him being an All-American. I will eat my words if I'm wrong. But you got to find a way to allocate accordingly for the Krivas and Karchenkov returns, and then you got to go find a guy who wants to win and be prominently featured on a great team. That said, you can't overpay in the portal because that sets you back. But that said, Arizona can win titles in the next few years and needs the point guard. They do need that guy. And ideally, you have a guy with a few years of eligibility left in order to win and continue winning. My vote right now would be Isaiah Johnson. I've had time to mull this over. And my part of this is I assume Acaden Lewis goes pro. But I don't mind Diallo, but he cannot be paid as much as those other guys because those other guys are better. And if they're on the same playing field in terms of payment, you cannot go Diallo. However, if he's cheaper and you can go get a 4, Diallo, keep Krivas and Karchenkov, now we're talking. That's a great move. Now, the question is, what happens first? What is the first domino to fall? The biggest domino is Mo Krivas, but that probably won't be the first because he's going to test the draft waters, and he should. So does Arizona wait for Mo and Ivan to come back or not? Do they allure them to come back by getting a point guard and say, okay, we've done this. We've done our part. Now you need to come back. My guess, the point guard happens soon. Let's discuss the how of if Mo and Ivan will make their decision to come back to Tucson. What has to happen? What will happen? And also, does Dwayne Aristode stay? Because he feels like a little bit of the odd man out. All that and more next on Locked On Wildcats. Right after a word from Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill sitting open when the pressure's on, and you need the right hire. This is a job for Indeed-sponsored jobs. Indeed-sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, locations. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In just the minute I've been talking to you, the companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed-sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. So when you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed-sponsored jobs. And listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed-sponsored jobs. Speaking of jobs, Mo Krivas has a big-time job interview with the NBA, or will he be coming back and doing an All-American level job at Arizona? To me, It's basically, Mo, you're offered to be a pro and likely play smaller minutes unless he finds a perfect landing spot, of which I will be very happy for him. But I don't think it's likely that he says, yeah, that's the spot I need to go. And this is the number. Like, if he's picked before 20, I think it's hard to get him back. But this is a great draft, and there's a lot of big guys in it. I've heard rumbles that Patrick Gongba from Duke, who's seen similarly by many pundits about the NBA draft, they say him as a better prospect than Mo. I personally think Mo's better. I think he's better at the college game, and I think he's better at the NBA game. But many pundits have him higher, and he's thinking about coming back. So essentially, Mo's offered the question of, is it better to stay at Arizona and be an All-American and become a higher pick next year in a lesser draft, but also have more counting stats to his name, and then be an All-American, get paid accordingly, and just have that kind of that legend behind him? And in my opinion, Europeans are a little less eager, a little less overzealous to go to the league. That's just stigma for the NBA that the Americans have. The Americans rush the NBA for right or for wrong. And there are always rebounds for it. I'm not trying to argue into that. But I think the Europeans have a little broader sense and a more refined palette of like, okay, it doesn't have to be now. So I do kind of, in my heart of hearts, believe Mo comes back. Now, the next question is Ivan Karchenkov. Ivan's probably going to come back, and this is the pitch, right? Like, this is what the discussion looks like. The NBA is going to tell him, you don't shoot particularly well. You're a great defender. You have size. You need to improve shooting, improve ability on the basketball. And at Arizona, you will get the usage rate that you did not have while playing alongside Cope and Braden Burries. Now this year, you can have a higher usage rate. You shoot a little bit better. You still play hard, and you can be a lottery pick next year. Like, that's the pitch. And to me, it's really easy to see who he falls. It's Thomas Hauck. He helps contribute to winning. He's a kind of a guy that draws praise in March Madness, then comes back and he's an All-American in the case of Hauck. I think Ivan could do something similar. What becomes interesting if those two come back is, does Dwayne Aristode stay in Tucson? And I've alluded to this a little bit. Aristode, if you were to say like size and shooting combination, he's the best of those two on the team if you mix and match those combinations. He does not dribble well. He's a good athlete in some senses, but he kind of has his warts there as well. Doesn't put the ball on the deck. I'd rather him play the 3 than the 4, but I definitely want Karchenkov playing the 3. Aristode's position that he could get the most run at would be the 4, but Tommy Lloyd often plays the 2 big lineup. And when I say 2 big, I'm not just saying like, yeah, above 6'8" or something. I'm talking about like big boys banging in the middle and getting a ton of rebounds. And there's depth coming off the bench for the small forward position as well, and Cam Holmes. And Aristode would have the head start over him. But like, does Aristode stay if he's not a starter? Does Nick Hamania drawing interest make it more tenuous for the likelihood of Aristode staying? I believe Aristode knew this year that he wasn't going to play a ton, and this next year would be the year for him. There's a world that him and Karchenkov occupy the 2 and the 3. I want to point that out. And right now, as it stands, only 7 programs in America have had 0 exodus, meaning that people have not left the program to the transfer portal. And I don't want to speculate negatively here, but I don't think Aristode plays the 4 for Arizona. So I think it's more likely that he plays the 3 and Karchenkov plays the 2 than Aristode's the starting 4. He can play the 4 at different times. That's the luxury of having a big-time athlete like him, like in the size of Karchenkov, who played the 4 in some of the bigger games for Arizona. But those are the guys who need to make their decisions. And I'm not saying it has to come first. Bryson Tiller's visiting Missouri. There are plenty of bigs in the portal. Krivas is the most important domino, but something's got to happen before Krivas makes his decision when he enters the draft waters and gets feedback. Something has to happen first. My hunch is that the guard spot is filled before the forward spot. But the forward spot to me is more important because it's about choosing your style. Whereas the point guard spot, I think there's a lot of different guys that Tommy Lloyd can go, and they can dig deeper in the coin pouch and say, okay, like this guy fits us to this amount, and he's got this amount of years for us in theory. And there's just more guys at the point guard spot. Like my heart of hearts, I think Isaiah Johnson is the most likely. I think they're trying to recreate the wheel too much if they try to make Zoom Diallo Jaden Bradley. It's just hard to be as good as the Big 12 player of the year. And I'm not saying that's the pitch from Tommy Lloyd to Zoom Diallo. But it is something to be said, okay, like he's going to visit Kentucky, and then maybe he visits Arizona, who's in a better spot than Kentucky, but doesn't have the same money that Kentucky has as the wealthiest team in college basketball. I don't want to overpay Zoom Diallo. I'd rather pay slightly more for Isaiah Johnson than overpay and pay evenly for Diallo than Johnson. That's my preference. From the big man spot, I mean, I was very clear about Masamba Diop. St. John's and Gonzaga seem to be the front runners in that regard. Aiden Sherrell's out there. I don't particularly love him. I think Bryson Tiller is an interesting name. I think I'd lean towards Paulius Morauskas over Bryson Tiller, despite Tiller being the big name. He scored 18 and 10 at Allen Fieldhouse against Arizona. I think I'd lean Morauskas between those guys. But the big domino to fall is Mo Krivas. Does he stay? Next up, Karchenkov. But in the midst, before that happens, and before that allocation, as well as role allocation, but I'm speaking mostly of money allocation, they're going to save that money for Mo and hope. And then, in the meantime, they got to go fill out the roster to make it more enticing for Mo to come back. These are good problems to have. Arizona is going to be good. I think there's a lot of trust that I have in Tommy Lloyd to make this work. Thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Wildcats today. Tomorrow's show, well, it's the weekend, on Monday. I'll have a show either on the latest on the portal, but also kind of my thoughts on the idea of where Burries and Pete will go in the NBA draft. I'll also be doing some NBA draft work in those coming weeks. So I'll have a lot of Arizona NBA draft type of stuff. And of course, I'll keep you up to date in the portal. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Wildcats so you get the latest episodes. You can also find me on Twitter. It's just my name, Leaf Tulane, and interact with me there. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for people like you. So get Locked On Wildcats ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to LockedOnWildcats.supercast.com to join the link or to join the club. And there's also a link in the bio. And for those of you on video, we send you the first ever 24/7 national Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And in audio, make sure you make your second listen, Locked On College Basketball with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, bear down. And I got this shirt from Chris, so bear down especially to my guy, Chris. Have a great day.